If you've got a couple of briefs to share with you today, just make sure you put your questions in the chat of the Zoom with your name and your outlet. For weeks now, Hezbollah has violated the ceasefire agreement in place, launching drones with explosives and rockets at our civilian communities. It is clear Israel targets the terrorists of Hezbollah, while Hezbollah targets Israeli civilians. Israel will not allow Hezbollah to continue violating the ceasefire in Lebanon, and we will act with force to counter these violations. Our IDF soldiers are operating daily to destroy
Recording in progress.
targets throughout Lebanon, including command centers and weapons storage sites, launchers, and underground tunnel routes used by Hezbollah terrorists for hideout purposes. So far, more than 1,100 Hezbollah targets have been struck. The IDF announced today they have eliminated more than 350 terrorists in southern Lebanon who posed a threat to Israeli civilians and IDF troops since Hezbollah breached the ceasefire back in February. We are also in historic days as Israel is continuing negotiations with Lebanon this week in Washington, D.C., mediated by the United States. Now, what makes these talks historic is that both Israel and Lebanon share the mutual goal of disarming Hezbollah and reaching a peace agreement that will strengthen security, stability, and prosperity in the region. This week, a soldier in the IDF reserves fell in battle near the border of Lebanon. Prime Minister Netanyahu and his wife, Sarah, extend their condolences to the family of 47-year-old Sergeant Major in the reserves, Alexander Globniov. May his memory be a blessing. Next on Iran, Israel is working in full coordination with the United States to ensure Iran no longer poses a nuclear, missile, and terroristic threat to our nations. We are prepared and ready for any scenario. Operation Roaring Lion severely degraded the Iranian regime from their leadership to their nuclear and ballistic missile capabilities, which was built over 47 years. And finally, I would like to share with you a new report that was released today by the Civil Commission on October 7th, Crimes by Hamas Against Women and Children. After more than 2.5 years of investigating, the review of more than 10,000 photos and videos, and more than 430 plus testimonies, the Civil Commission found that sexual and gender-based violence during the October 7th massacre and the atrocities committed by Hamas and other terror organizations in Israel on that horrific day was systemic, widespread, and a calculated strategy done to maximize pain and suffering in Israeli society. The investigation identified 13 recurring forms of sexual and gender-based violence across multiple locations, including rape, gang rape, sexual torture, mutilation, forced nudity, and executions. The findings say the repetition of these patterns demonstrates that the crimes were not isolated acts of brutality. They were part of a broader operational method used during the attack and its aftermath. The abuse our people have endured was on purpose by Hamas. These monsters film these barbaric acts, wanting the world to see their crimes. Hamas is a terrorist organization that did whatever they could to humiliate and demoralize our people on October 7th and beyond, taking 250 innocent people hostage and continuing their despicable and violent behaviors against our people. Israel stands with the brave survivors of Hamas's terrorism, exploitation, and barbarism. We will do everything to ensure the world knows the truth about Hamas and their weapon of sexual violence used against us and our people. In response to the Hamas terrorist attack and the crimes against humanity committed as part of their attack, Israel engaged in a just war to remove the threat of terrorism posed to our civilians. We will never allow such atrocities to ever happen again. I'll now take a few questions. Okay, first question, Julia Frankel from the Associated Press. Ambassador Huckabee confirmed this morning that Israel sent Iron Dome and personnel to the UAE during the war. Can you confirm that? And did Israel also send Iron Beam? I can't comment on those media reports, but I can share with you that Israel has an excellent relationship with the UAE. And your second question, can you respond to accusations that Israeli security officers have sexually assaulted Palestinian prisoners and detainees? So specifically on this New York Times report, This piece was published in the opinion section of the New York Times, which is pretty telling within itself. It is not only blatantly false, but in clear violation of journalistic standards by the New York Times and the so-called journalist Nick Kristof. One of the principal NGOs cited in this article is Euromed Monitor. Despite repeated reported links to two of the organization's employees to Hamas, were actually seen photographed alongside Hamas leaders, one of them being Ismail Haniyeh. Kristof's article reflects a broader pattern in the New York Times, which disproportionately targets Israel in its coverage. We see this over and over and over again. This is the exact same paper that disseminated baseless accusations of starvation in Gaza, only actually published a retraction for the story on a secondary web page. It is also important to note the timing of this article. It was published just one day before the Civil Commission released its findings on the systemic use of sexual violence and rape by Hamas against Israelis on October 7th. Now, the New York Times had been informed about the Commission's report, including its publication date, yet showed little interest in actually covering it. Against that backdrop, the decision to publish these allegations at that specific moment raises serious questions about editorial judgment and priorities at the New York Times. Steve Shear from Reuters, where does the Prime Minister stand on early elections now that the ultra-Orthodox parties said they would work to dissolve the Knesset since there is no military conscription bill, while the Democrats' party submitted a bill to dissolve the Knesset? I have nothing to share with you on that right now. Okay, it seems like those are all the questions we have right now. Of course, you can reach out to us directly if you have any more. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Recording stopped.